It's time to continue our journey through the dark and twisted tale of the infamous Jigsaw Killer with the fifth film in the series, 2008's Saw 5. Welcome, fellow horror movie enthusiasts, to another chilling recap by Sinister Snapshots, where we indulge in the thrills and chills of our favorite horror films. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just looking for a refresher, we're here to ensure that you won't forget the horrors. The film opens as Seth Baxter, a convicted murderer, wakes up chained to a table underneath a pendulum blade. A videotape plays nearby that informs him that he can release himself by crushing his hands between two machine presses. As the pendulum begins to lower and sway, Seth inserts his hand into the presses. However, the blade still swings down and cuts him in half little by little as someone watches through a hole in the wall. Next, Agent Peter Strahm escapes from being detained in the sick room at the meatpacking plant at the end of the previous film, Saw 4. He crawls through a hidden doorway, but while trying to escape, he's attacked by someone in a pig mask. Strahm wakes up with his head sealed in a box as the box starts to fill with water. Strahm survives this trap by stabbing a pen into his throat in order to save himself from drowning. The scene cuts, and officers are responding to the meatpacking plant where Hoffman brings Corbett Denlon, the kidnapped daughter of Jeff and Lynn Denlon, with him to the police. Hoffman tells police that he and Corbett are the only survivors and is visibly surprised when paramedics also bring out a living Peter Strahm. Shortly after, Hoffman is promoted to detective lieutenant and credited with closing the Jigsaw cases during a press conference. After this, he finds a note in his office that reads, "I know who you are," and learns of the death of Strahm's partner, Lindsay Perez. Strahm, suspicious of Hoffman, tells him that Perez's last words were Hoffman's name. Strahm also questions how Hoffman escaped from the plant. Strahm is also visited by his boss, Dan Erickson, who informs him that he's off the case due to putting others in danger and puts him on medical leave to recover from his experience with the water trap. During his leave, Strahm takes the files of the Jigsaw case and begins to research previous victims on his own. Meanwhile, Hoffman is watching over a live camera feed as 5 people wake up in an underground sewer level with collars connected to mounted blades locked around their necks. A Jigsaw videotape begins to play and tells the participants that they're all connected by a cable that can be pulled tight enough to pull them up and decapitate them by way of mounted razor blades above their heads. Jigsaw advises them to not follow their instincts and to work together during the game. They're informed that the keys to unlock the collars are in individual glass boxes across the room, but if one of them moves to get a key, then the 60-second timer will begin for them all. They're also told that they need to solve the puzzles in each room and leave before the timer runs out. Otherwise, a jar of explosives will detonate in the corner of each room. The arsonist, Malik, activates the timer and everyone rushes to get their respective key. However, the wires tied to their necks are all connected, so only one participant may go at a time. Everyone manages to reach their keys except for Ashley, a former fire inspector, who's decapitated when the collars retract. During this, Strahm is doing some digging on Hoffman. He finds out that Seth Baxter, the man who was killed in the film's opening scenes, was the man who murdered Hoffman's sister. Erickson catches Strahm walking through the precinct, where he makes up an excuse that he's simply grabbing items from his office and taking the suggested time off. Strahm then heads over to the crime scene where Baxter was murdered. He comes to the conclusion that Hoffman had Baxter killed and made it look like a jigsaw trap as he begins to piece everything together. In the next room, the 4 survivors learn that the overhead jars contain keys to 3 bomb shelters. The investigative journalist, Charles, strikes Malik and begins smashing the jars one by one. The real estate vice president, Britt, and the city planner, Luba Gibbs, each find a key, and Charles finds the last key. Luba strikes Charles, and Malik takes his key, leaving the journalist to die in the explosion. The film then cuts to a flashback of how Hoffman first met Jigsaw. Jigsaw assaults Hoffman in an elevator, injecting him with a needle that knocks him unconscious. When he wakes up, he's tied to a chair that has a shotgun pointed up at his face. Jigsaw shows him the front page of the paper where the headline is giving him credit for the murder of Seth Baxter. After a conversation, Jigsaw clicks the shotgun's trigger, revealing that the gun was not actually loaded. Jigsaw tells Hoffman that he can either arrest him, knowing that his current life will end since Jigsaw will tell the police that he did not murder Baxter, or Hoffman can explore Jigsaw's method of rehabilitation by working with him. Back in the present, Hoffman reaches out to Erickson and shares Strom's theory that Jigsaw had a second accomplice besides Amanda Young, and Erickson says that they should reconnect in the morning. In the third room, the three survivors discover 5 short electrical cables that need to be connected to a bathtub full of water to unlock the next door. If they do not get it fixed in 3 minutes, an electrical current is set to surge through the room, locking the door forever. Luba attacks Malik to use his body to close the circuits, but Britt stabs her in the neck, killing her. Malik and Britt use her body to complete the circuit and open the door. Strom realizes that he was not meant to survive his Jigsaw trap, and only Corbett and Hoffman were meant to escape the plant from the previous film. As Strom begins to focus more on Hoffman, it draws concern from Erickson. Erickson's concerns are further fueled when Jill Tuck, Jigsaw's ex-wife, reports to Erickson that she believes Strom has been stalking her. Erickson tries to call Strom, but Hoffman has Strom's phone and turns it off. He then decides to put a tracker on Strom's cell phone, which leads him to the observation room of the game involving the 5 participants. In the fourth room, Malik and Britt find a machine with 5 circular saws and a beaker requiring 10 pints of blood to open the door. Britt tries to use the keys from the first room to open the door and realizes that all 5 keys are the same. Malik notes the 5 holes and saws and realizes that the group of 5 were meant to work together to survive the game, and if they had, they would have survived each of the games as a group. Britt also realizes that all 5 of them were involved with a building fire that killed 8 people. Resigned to their fate, Britt and Malik place their arms into the traps and allow the saws to cut them to provide enough blood for the jar. They're successful, and the door opens. Erickson discovers Strom's cell phone and his own personal file, which have both been planted by Hoffman. Erickson finds a bleeding Britt on the floor and calls for an ambulance. During this, he puts out an all-points bulletin on Strom, suspecting that he is the Jigsaw accomplice. Meanwhile, Strom follows Hoffman into an abandoned building. He finds a room with an underground room containing a clear box filled with shards of broken glass. Strom finds a tape that urges Strom to enter the box, but he doesn't listen to the tape and ambushes Hoffman when he enters the room. The 2 men struggle, and Strom throws Hoffman into the box and closes the lid, which triggers the room doors to seal shut. In the glass box, Hoffman points to the tape, which warns Strom that if he does not enter the box, he will die, and Jigsaw's legacy will become his. The box then slowly lowers into the floor as the walls of the room begin to close in on Strom, who unsuccessfully attempts to escape through the ceiling, but is ultimately crushed to death as Hoffman watches safely from the box in the floor, and the credits roll. That wraps up our Sinister Snapshots recap of Saw 5. If you enjoyed this recap, do not forget to subscribe to Sinister Snapshots, your one-stop destination for the best horror film recaps. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest and most horrifying tales from the best and most chilling films in the horror genre. And of course, leave a comment below about what other horror movie recaps or sinister stories you'd like to see next. Until next time, friends.